Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Which One Works. In this little video series, I take a few of my photographs from the same location and I evaluate them critically to decide which one works better than the other. So, it kind of helps to get into the mind of photographers to understand why they pick the images that they do and how they look and curate their images as they're going through the raw files on their computer. So that's why I started this series. So in this episode of Which One Works, I'm going to pick a few images from my most recent workshop in Iceland. And we went down to Diamond Beach and had a sunrise there on Diamond Beach down by the Iceberg Lagoon, and I shot a few frames and I want to show you just sort of an evaluation of a couple of them. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. All right, here we are at Diamond Beach along the south coast of Iceland. And, on this beach, if you're not familiar with it, there's icebergs that calve off a glacier into a lagoon, travel down a river, go out into the ocean, and then get washed up onto the shore. And it's a fantastic, wonderful place to photograph. I love visiting this location every time I go. There's so much that you can do creatively that it's almost endless. And during my trip there a few weeks ago, the weather was beautifully clear and it was cold. It was 15 to 20 degrees with a breeze, a wind happening. Which made for wonderful photography. However, what the cold temps meant was that the icebergs were not calving off the glacier and flowing into the lagoon. The lagoon was frozen, and so icebergs were not coming out into the ocean and being deposited on the beach. So when we visited during sunrise on this one day, there was not a lot of fresh ice that had been deposited. We were left with photographing icebergs that were a little bit further up the beach, that were a few days older before the freeze, which added some different photographic possibilities than what I normally shoot. Normally with icebergs really close to the water's edge, you get some water motion around them and you get flow, and it's really kind of a fun exercise. It can be dangerous and scary too with the waves and the shifting ice. But on this day, we had a little bit older icebergs to deal with, a little bit more beach to deal with. So it was just a different experience. And thankfully, though, with the sunrise and the clear skies, I was able to actually include more of the sky into these shots than what I normally do. So in looking at this first shot, the first thing I notice is the sky. The sky is so very bright. It's right on the edge of clipping. Normally, I would want to tone that down a little bit. I don't like things right on the border, tonally speaking. And so I would want to tone that down. And I'm a little concerned because I'm right next to peaking, whether I will be able to adjust it into my liking without having it look funky. But, it's within bounds and I can give it a try. So, okay, so far so good. I look at the ocean, and the ocean, I wanted some water motion, some blur in the water, and I got it. But the shape of the ocean, the amount of the blur, it doesn't resonate really strongly with me. It's not bad, it's just not my ideal kind of conditions of the ocean. So, it's acceptable, it's not a deal killer, but it's not great. The iceberg itself that's right here on the beach, great shape, great texture. I've got some translucency happening here through the upper part, which I love. So that looks great. The one thing I always pay attention to and teach as often as I can is the concept of space. Giving your subjects or your compositional elements enough space, enough room to breathe, so they're not feeling cramped. When things are cramped in a composition, it introduces tension. And tension's not something that I want to do in a beautiful landscape photograph. So I like to have space. And if I look at this iceberg, I've got some wonderful space along the bottom and the right-hand side. It's not too close to the edge of the frame. The top of the iceberg is a little close to the waterline, but that is okay with me. So far so good on this image. But then I start looking deeper into it and I got a problem. And my problem is this line of rocks and ice cubes that go horizontally across the entire image. This, to me, is visual noise, and it detracts from my subject and the overall composition. My ideal shots on this beach are a smooth sand with no rocks and an iceberg and the wave motion. That's my ideal that I'm striving towards. And so this very much breaks that ideal. It's not a deal killer for me, but a shot like this it's a pretty picture. I'm not sure it's one that is portfolio worthy for me. I could try to go in and clean up all of this, but there's so much that I don't think it's going to work. And so this is one that I'm going to have to live with, that line of noise across the top of the iceberg. And, it just is what it is what it is. And it's a function of the conditions that I was presented with on this day. So it's an okay shot. So let's look at another shot. Now this has some potential to it. The sky is a little bit more in check. It's less bright. And so I know that that's going to process up well. The thing with photographing in Iceland during the winter, it's very low angle light, and there's a lot of saturation of yellows throughout the entire landscape. And so playing with color is sometimes really important in your post-processing of these shots. So I know that there's a ton of color and it's going to process up well. I just need to be careful that it doesn't get too funky. Now, looking at the ocean, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wanted. It's got a dreamy quality and feel to it. I've got strong horizontal lines running across that mimic the clouds in the sky. This ocean is beautiful, and it's going to process up nicely as well. Now, looking at the ice that's on the beach here, love the shape of this iceberg. Beautiful. I'm sort of not happy that the tip of this berg intersects the line of the horizon, but I can look past that. I've got a little bit of translucency happening through here. This iceberg's gonna process up really wonderfully. I know I've got some dark sections here, but those will I can bring those up, bring up the shadows really nicely and easily, and then bump the exposure and the whites and really make this ice pop. The beach itself is relatively dark, but I know that's going to be an easy thing if I wanted to raise the exposure of that a little bit. It's not going to look funky. Tonally, this image looks great. Compositionally, I love the ice. I love the ocean. Nailed it. But I've got a big problem. And that big problem is down here at the bottom. If you look at this ice, it intersects the edge of my frame. It touches the edge right here, and that is something that is an absolute deal killer for me. So I hope you don't mind. I'm showing you some of my bad shots and why things don't work for me, but this is absolutely actually a deal killer, and it's one that I really am bummed that I didn't capture well while I was on location. I was more focused on working with my clients, of course, and less focused on my own photography, but I preach slowing down a lot so you can spot things like this. Analyze every part of your composition so you can spot things that happen like this. So when I got home, I saw this and I looked through the series of images I shot of this iceberg, and I only shot two different frames of this ice, and both of them I suffer from this problem. So as it stands, this image doesn't work either. As much as I love everything about it, that intersection with the edge of the frame is a deal killer. Because I love this image so much, I did something that I don't normally do, and I added a little bit of information into the photograph. So I went into Photoshop and I expanded the canvas and added a little bit of information. And I've got a little video of how I did that. If you click on the banner up above, you can check out and see how I did that. But I wanted this image to survive so badly that I resorted to doing that. And this is what the edition looks like. Now look at the space that I have down here. It's not intersecting, it's not too close to cause tension. I've got enough breathing room, and the rest of the image is beautiful. So this is going to process up wonderfully, and I absolutely love this shot. And then, as I said, I would normally take this image into Photoshop and do a lot of processing to get everything just right. But for this video, I spent just a couple of quick minutes in Lightroom to do some minor processing on this, and I want to show you what it looks like. So at the end of the day, this is what the potential of this shot is going to look like. The sky's toned down, some of the color is toned down a little bit. Really the luminance of these ice chips is brought up significantly. I really wanted the whites and the exposure to come up on the ice, because that's the subject. That's the main part of this image, and I really wanted it to shine and grab and hold people's attention. Then I also brought up a little bit of the shadows on the beach because I wanted the texture of the sand visible, and I also wanted to add a little bit of context for people to know that we're on a beach. There's sand, there's ocean, the sky, and I have these icebergs on the beach. So there you go. There's what the processing is going to look like. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day, and stay tuned for more videos. All right, bye-bye.